Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review. And today we're checking out one of the coolest shotgun mods we've had in a while, and that is the Street Sweeper by Cadaver. This is going to add in the real-life weapon known as the Striker into Fallout 4, and this thing is super cool. It has a very interesting reload and very interesting mechanisms in general. This is going to have a 12-round drum magazine, but it doesn't work quite like you'd think. If you don't know a lot about the Striker, this thing is very interesting in that you have to load each shell individually. It's not an ejectable drum mag. This is instead a revolving drum mag. So you insert a shell, rotate the cylinder, and then insert another shell, similar to, say, a single action army. It's definitely a very interesting system for a shotgun and one that's not very commonly seen, but I think it fits pretty well in the Fallout universe. A little bit more about the mod details. This thing actually is added to the level list and will start spawning on Minutemen, Vendors, and Legendaries after level 25. So interestingly enough, the main faction you're going to find this on is the Minutemen, which is definitely different from what you see in normal weapon mods. Additionally, this mod does have a handful of unique variants that you can find out in the world that we'll talk about a little bit later. There's a ton of customization options, of course, over at the weapons workbench, so you can throw on a bunch of attachments to make this thing perform much different from its standard version. Of course, this thing has a plethora of custom animations considering the very unique reload style, and there's even support for bullet counted reload, which again, we'll talk about a little bit more in the animation section, as that's a huge integral part of this mod. Now, considering the complex nature of this weapon, there are a couple of bugs that we'll talk about towards the end of the video. Just some small things to be aware of, but nothing that's absolutely game-breaking or going to cause any major issues while you play with this thing. Alright, I think that covers most of the basics. Let's go ahead and talk about animations first. So here we are in game with the Striker, otherwise known as the Street Sweeper, and this thing is absolutely incredible. Let's go ahead and show what it looks like to mag dump this thing, and then also show off that pretty lengthy reload. So as you can see, it is nice to be able to spew out 12 rounds at a pretty rapid pace, but the reload is going to be the trade-off for this thing. But it makes sense in terms of balance, because if we look at the stats, you'll find that this thing actually has a higher damage than the base shotguns in the vanilla game. So while you can spew out lead pretty rapidly, this thing does have a very lengthy reload that is going to be the trade-off for that extra damage. But there is something nice about that reload, and that is the integration of bullet counted reload. So if we fire only, say, 3 shots, we will only reload 3 shots. So that's definitely something that I think is very necessary for a weapon like this, but I'm very glad that it is included in this mod. Now up next, we're going to be talking about the unique variants found in this mod. There are 4 in total, and they are scattered all around the Commonwealth. If you don't want to know where they are and you want to find them on your own, spoiler free, click to the timestamp up above on the screen. But if you're okay with it, then let's go ahead and hop in with the first unique variant. So the first unique variant that you can find is known as the Slagger, and that's going to be just south of the 4-leaf fish packing plant. If you head over to the construction site that is infested with super mutants, you will find at the top of that structure there is an explosive box with the Slagger in it. We grab that thing and check it out. This thing is actually going to have a unique skin, which is the H&H Tools Company skin, and that is actually applied to all of the attachments as well, which is some really cool texture work by Cadaver. Now, the next unique you can find is known as the Kraken, and that's going to be found over at Fort Hagen. Head into the underground parking structure, and as you navigate through the area, you will find a little den where somebody has been hiding out, and there's another box with the Kraken in it. If we go ahead and open this bad boy up, we're going to see that it has a pretty interesting design with some black and green textures. Definitely a bit weird looking in the Fallout universe, but still pretty dang cool and definitely unique compared to the other shotguns in this mod. The next unique shotgun is known as the Rose Lux, and it can be found over at the Electrical Hobbyist Club, so be sure to bring some Rad X. As you navigate your way through the building, you will find another box containing the Rose Lux. If we open that one up, you will find that this one has another pretty interesting skin that's going to be a very bright pink. Not sure why you might want to run this one, but hey, if you do, it is available in this mod. And the final unique shotgun can be found over at the Crater House. Simply head over to the middle structure in the center of the crater, and you'll find the final box containing the last shotgun, which is known as Friendly to the Lore. If we go ahead and open that one up in our Pip-Boy, we'll see that this thing has a whole bunch of wood furniture, kind of calling out the meme about how every lore-friendly gun needs wood furniture to be lore-friendly. Just a nice little jab at the Fallout 4 community. Alright, now then, let's talk about attachments over at the weapons workbench. There are a good bit of attachments for this thing, but not so much that it feels absolutely cluttered in the menus. I think it has just the sweet spot of attachments. So, starting with the receiver section, we have exactly what you'd expect. Standard up through advanced. Advanced giving you a damage of 131 compared to the standard 75. We have a handful of barrel options. We have short, extended, ported, and heavy. We have a couple of scope options with the iron sights, the NIDAR sight, a custom hollow scope made by Cadaver, and a long scope, which I actually really like on this thing. It's not incredibly long. It's more like a, I don't know, maybe a 4 times, but I think it works pretty well on this thing, especially with slugs. For the muzzle devices, we have the option for no muzzle, of course, a compensator, a muzzle brake, a choke, and a suppressor, which, by the way, I love the suppressor design for this thing, and I especially like the choke, which takes the form of a duck bill sort of brake, which looks pretty cool. Then for the stock options, we have the standard stock, the option for no stock, the option for a skeletal stock, and my favorite, the heavy stock, which is a nice solid wood stock that looks pretty good on this thing. We have the option for a bonus attachment, which comes in the form of either a flashlight or a laser. I do appreciate the attempt at a lore-friendly design, as this is a pretty retro style of flashlight, and then same goes for the laser. It isn't a super tactical peck box or anything like that. Then we also have the option to throw on a damage modifier if you want to tweak the damages in your game. We have up to negative 60% and a positive 60%. So depending on how the balance works in your load order, you can tweak these as necessary. Then finally, we do have the option to change out the different ammo types. We have the standard buckshot, of course, a heavy slug that does some whopping damage with a single projectile and heavily increases the range and accuracy. You then also do have the option for some Dragon's Breath, which does have heavily decreased base damage and only a little bit increased incendiary damage, but I've noticed this with Cadaver's mods before, and you may have seen it in the B-roll already. This damage stat does not entirely reflect how effective it is in combat. While this damage stat seems pretty dang low, this thing is actually incredible and does way more damage than the standard buckshot. It has a huge spread and is able to wipe out enemies like it's nobody's business, so definitely try out the Dragon's Breath for yourself. It's actually super effective. And then finally, we have the 12 gauge frag rounds, which is another single projectile that has 211 damage, a pretty significant improvement over the slug rounds, but at the cost of that extended range that the slugs have access to. Alright, now then, it is of course time for our damage test, and we do have a lot of damage tests to talk about today. We'll be doing the standard buckshot, the fully upgraded buckshot, the fully upgraded slugs, and the fully upgraded explosive slugs to see how all of those damages compare. And then I do also want to show off the Dragon's Breath as a little bonus test, just to show you that the base stats don't actually reflect its effectiveness like we talked about earlier. So starting off with the standard buckshot, this is going to be no upgrades and no perks, just testing out the base weapon damage. And taking down a Deathclaw in 9 shots is totally respectable, especially with the ability to sling these out pretty quickly. The only cost is that lengthy reload, but at the very least you can kill a Deathclaw without needing to reload with this weapon, so that's a pretty nice little bit of damage there. Let's see what it looks like when the buckshot is fully upgraded. A little bit of an audio delay there, sorry about that. That was only 5 shots for that Deathclaw, so the damage upgrade is definitely pretty significant. Let's see how we do with slugs. Alright, I was not expecting that negative recoil. I guess I hadn't tried out these standard slugs yet. That's pretty interesting, but only 3 shots to put down a Deathclaw, and keep in mind, I don't even have any perks on, so this thing can definitely be upgraded to do some pretty crazy damage, and that's why that damage modifier is there if you need to reduce it for your load order. Now then, let's see how we do with the explosive slugs. Following a pretty linear trend here, we now only take down that Deathclaw in 2 shots, so that's pretty interesting. Now, the advanced Street Sweeper that we just used has 267 damage per shot, plus the little explosive bonus, and again, the Incendiary one, with the ones with the Dragon's Breath here, only has 8 damage plus 45 Incendiary, so it shouldn't perform nearly as well as the one we just used. But let's go ahead and see how it does on this Deathclaw here. And you'll see that it actually puts the Deathclaw down in one shot, making this thing actually do the most damage out of all of the other variants, despite the stats not quite reflecting that. So I'm not sure why that is, but it's definitely very, very effective. And that's going to wrap up pretty much all of the basic information, all of the testing we're going to do in today's video. Like I did say, there is a couple of bugs we need to talk about. First of all, the bullet counted reload that is featured in this mod, while it is excellent, it does not work in third person. So if you want the bullet counted reload effect, it's only going to work in first person. It's a small thing, but I know there are some third person players out there who may have some issues with this. One other issue is, of course, that third-person power armor animations don't quite work, as that is typically the case with most mods that have custom animations. So just be aware of that. If you're a third-person player, you may run into some small issues with this mod. But if you're not, this mod's going to work perfectly, and it's going to fit in the game pretty seamlessly. Altogether, this makes for an awesome new shotgun mod, one that is super unique to anything on the Nexus. Cadaver keeps finding ways to make super excellent mods that fit perfect into Fallout, so props to him for making this incredible mod. If you want to try this thing out, it is available right now on PC and will be linked down in the description below, and we'll see if there's a port to Xbox sometime in the future. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating and consider subscribing for more videos just like this. As always, a big shout out to my patrons for supporting every single video, and a very special thank you to Captain Chaos, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noyd, John Moreland, Cushy, Logan Rignaden, Microhan, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, Timmy76, Youth RC, and Voider for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. Your guys' support is awesome. If you want to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description below, but it's completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace!